Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to another great, fantastic episode of T3PO Live. Welcome, 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 everyone, one and all. I will say, before we get things started, man, I had one of the worst nights ever. Just allergies galore. I just sniffles, runny nose, all the just headaches, all the things. So I might not be in 100% shape, but I know it will be a 100% show, that is for sure. And to kick off this show, we have an amazing panel comprised of some of our dear friends, and it is always delightful that they, join us for every single one of these. Thank you for that. We got a great show for you today, guys. Getting into all kinds of stuff when it comes to the Disney stock price. Now, it did have a little bit of a bump day, which is, honestly, that's not a bad thing. That's actually a good thing, because it looked a little dire there for a little bit. Not just Disney stock, but just everybody. It's been a tough couple of days on the market, and it's right before the earnings call, which is just not good at all. Not a good thing to have had happen. But before we get to all of that, let's go ahead and bring in some of these panelists and get to some of our stories that we have planned for you today. We have the amazing, the one, the only Barry Place 28. We have Ron, the Bradley's Fun, and I think we have Lou Wasserman as well. Pretty sure. Yep. I'm going to go ahead and put him on screen anyway. What is going on there, guys? Welcome to it.
Hey, everyone. God.
I'm honored to be
here for the first time, or whatever.
Good to see you, everybody.
Back in the saddle again.
Back in the saddle again.
Out where a friend is a friend.
Yes. I tried to go back in the saddle yesterday and I almost hurt myself. I was trying to do that bye dance from NSYNC from Deadpool, and I'm like, bye back problem. Oh my gosh.
Oh well, I was watching all the the John Wick movies, and there's that scene in the stable in New York where the bad guy's coming up behind the horse, and he just slapped the horse, and the horse kicks him in the teeth, and I'm going, yeah, man.
Man, horses are dangerous. Horses are something else. I love that scene, by the way. I know exactly what you're talking about. Oh, see, Lou wants to talk about John Wick, and I can go about John Wick. I can cover John Wick all day. But guys, there have been a lot of updates even today with Disney and them trying to boost up the stock price in any way that they possibly can. But what is being maybe boosted, but not maybe working as effectively as Disney would like? Tiana. Tiana's back. Back to her old self, This video came in just recently, a couple days ago. You can see right here, this from Diane.
Yeah, she's so great that we have to put a lot of bright lights on so you can't see her too much, and you go by her very fast. That's how great she is.
Well,
but she's not voodoo. Don't you dare call her voodoo.
Don't call her voodoo.
Got that T-pose for Mama Odie this time. So I think we've seen now.
When I was a little kid, guys, when I was a little kid, we'd go to those classic Italian restaurants, and they would all have 83 zillion Chianti bottles hanging from the ceiling. I'd say, someday I want to open up an Italian restaurant because I get to drink all that wine. Well, it makes you wonder what Mama Odie's been drinking out of all those bottles when you see this scene, doesn't it?
Apparently, she's drunken herself stiff there.
Well, I love the reference to the Yeti in that post.
Yes. I thought that was pretty clever. Yeti. Mama Odie's an incredible advanced animatronic. Love or hate by you. That's just a fact. In fact, she's so advanced, she reminds me of the Yeti on Expedition Everest in more ways than one. I love that as well. Also, too, number one, Mondo lover. You'd think, we'd be okay here, but nope. Not this time. Let's see if I can get this big here. We got Tiana, and she's only moving her head, and then the rest of her body is like stuck in this position where her arms are to her side.
She's doing a robot dance.
Well, I guess that would be appropriate. Wait, very strange.
What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Let's see, maybe that's what they're going for.
Oh, that's bad.
I had one. I had one where Louis is not moving right. I think it was only his head was moving and his body was not. It was like it was weird looking. It's like this.
Yes, I think Tiana was also frozen in that as well, which was weird.
But
very strange.
We know one thing.
Mm-hmm.
The question that will not get asked at the earnings call tomorrow is, Bob, you had how many years to make this ride? How come the animatronics don't work? Nobody will ask that question.
How come the animatronics won't work? No, nobody's going to ask that, which, that would take journalistic integrity, I suppose. No, these are usually guys from, these big financial institutions and so forth. They like to ask the bigger questions, which is fine, but don't overlook the small stuff. This does make an impression on people, and we'll be going over just the cost of Disney right now and just how expensive it all is. Not good at all.
There's another point that I just made way back at the beginning of that other endless long wonderful show I just did that I think is important here, because Pro mentioned in passing about the fall off in attendance and how, quote unquote, we predicted it based on advanced reservations months ago, right? Mm-hmm. So months ago, that fall off began when people thought this was going to work and thought the Epcot finish was going to be wonderful and thought that the Country Bears were going to be spectacular.
Mm-hmm.
So when you factor this in,
mm-hmm.
this is what's going on now as far as people say, well, maybe I should just sort of hang back and wait before I make that trip, because in 6 months or a year, I'll get to go see what the other guys have got. But the fall off was long before the failures made themselves evident. So what's that all about, earnings call fans?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. A lot of these things were evident, and I believe the CFO of the company, Hugh Johnston, actually said that it's going to be a light season for Walt Disney World in particular.
Well, it's too hot, and they just had a hurricane, and that's not their fault that they put their theme park in Florida. because nobody ever knew there were hurricanes in Florida till now.
I expect a lot of excuses on a lot of this stuff. We'll get into it in just a second. I want to bring something to your attention, though. This was very interesting, and then we'll go ahead and move on to our stories officially. Not this one. This one, too bad as well. And you can see all the critters not actually moving. That's not great. But this one from Bear Oswald, I thought was very interesting. And Bob, I think you'll get a kick out of this because I think you know a little bit about capacity like I do. Besides the constant breakdowns, there's some capacity shenanigans going on with Tiana's Bayou Adventure. Limited amounts of boarding groups in the morning, fewer slots for Lightning Lane, and larger gaps between available times compared to other e-tickets. Queues tend to be empty for those redeeming their boarding passes in the afternoon/evening. Lots of underutilized capacity here. He links to a post made on, I believe, the WW Magic forums, if I'm not mistaken. Hot tip. This is from Matt Petto. They don't care about the return time with Tiana's Bayou Adventure. Last week, I had 7 a.m. grabs, boarding groups 21 and 22 on Sunday and Wednesday. I redeemed my virtual queue on Sunday about 6 p.m. and right before normal park close, 9:45 p.m. 9:45 p.m. was nearly 11 hours past my return window. Now, you'll note, guys, if you've been keeping track with how this VQ works, previously they would have you limited to like a range. I think it's like an hour run, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and I had this experience myself with Tiana's Bayou Adventure. So normally what they do is you have a return time, and then from that return time you have an hour window to return. So let's say it pops on, return at 2:05. Now with Tiana's it's very difficult because it's down often throughout the day. It usually doesn't start right with the park. A lot of times it starts at noon instead of 9. So you don't know when your return time is going to pop up. I actually had one pop up. A return time from 7 a.m. popped up at 8:30 a.m. And then when I got to the park, the ride didn't open until noon. I was a little upset because I didn't know how it worked at that time. Now, I do now. The other day I was in there, and at 1 o'clock I got group number 71. So the 1 o'clock drop in the park, I got group number 71. I wanted to specifically ride at night, so I tested it out myself. I went back at about 9 o'clock, and the letting in groups number 133 through 145. That's or maybe 150, something like that. I was group 71 and had no issue getting in. As a matter of fact, here's the weird part. There are people outside who don't have boarding groups who would like to be able to ride this ride, and they're keeping them out. The people that have boarding groups at all or lightning lanes are able to go in, but there's no line. Like I literally walked in and walked onto the ride. It's very strange that they're doing it this way.
It would be fascinating for some whistleblowing kind of person to release things like hourly schedules and payrolls and stuff on maintenance people. In other words, is it opening at noon instead of at 9 because they're still working from the night before? Or are they scheduling people to work during those day hours because that's when they'd be there anyway? And who needs the people in the way while they're fixing whatever it is they think they're fixing? You know what I mean?
I can tell you right now, Lou, that they have minimized how many those third shifts they actually schedule because
I'll bet they have.
Oh yeah. So I wouldn't doubt that they're maybe getting some maintenance done before opening it that day. It's some of the reasons, for delayed openings involve that. Very, very weird for a new attraction like this, that's for sure. Yeah. But I think that the reason why they have been, let's say, underutilizing the capacity on this attraction seemingly is because I think they're trying to allot for or allocate necessary time that you would experience with breakdowns with this attraction. I think they've gotten kind of wise to it and said, okay, well, let's not book this thing out. Let's not book out 140 boarding groups for the day. Let's limit it severely. And then if we do encounter a problem where this thing is shut down for 2, 3, 4 hours a day or something, or I think a quarter of the time, I think is what Culture Casino has stated before, well, then we've obviously padded that a little bit to allow for something like that.
if it breaks down while people are on it, they have to go through that whole thing of evacuating everybody and having people there to turn people away and having people come back, which is a staffing issue too.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, it is. And you're limited to how
better to have loved and lost than never have loved at all, or vice versa.
Yeah.
Hey,
You're
by the way,
do
you guys know all the history of this stuff in ways that I have no way of knowing?
Yes.
Back when we all thought everything was going to be swell and rosy and wonderful and marvelous with this thing, when was the Disneyland version supposed to open?
Well, they never announced an actual opening date. The rumor that everyone was going with was November of 2024 because Disney said, hey, we're opening in 2024.
So in other words, it would have, in the best of all worlds, been open for D23. And it's not. Well, and a lot of other things. And they're not.
Well, there's a lot of things they're doing too that they, I don't think, anticipated having to do. And to be honest with you, I've been saying that on this channel as well as Park Streamers and to all my followers that it's not going to open in 2024. I don't think so. It's going to wait until 2025. I mean, I just saw it like this. Now the train is down, but you can actually see over by the bridge where they're actually replacing the bridge area. And it still looks like this. It's still kind of a
so
mess.
Because they know that the interior is having problems that they haven't fixed yet on the East Coast, and they probably need to figure out the ultimate solutions to those to make the West Coast work. They're slowing down the exterior as well. That has nothing to do with that. Which is just like, well, what I'm saying is it's kind of like, oh, there's a pandemic. Let's not do anything else with Tron or Guardians or all that stuff we were going to do because we won't have people there, as opposed to this is our chance to really have it ready to open like gangbusters when the time comes. That's that false philosophy of they think they're economizing. And meanwhile, inflation marches on and every little washer costs 30% more when they finally getting around to ordering and needing it.
They got they got themselves in the big trouble because what they would do and what they have done for I think the past like 5 or 6 years is that they pushed off expenditures related to capital investments like the parks investments, right, to like quarter per quarter. So they would have like separate tranches of funding that would activate each quarter. And then they would stop and then they would go back on and they would stop. We saw that a lot with the treehouse actually at Adventureland. Start going, then stop, and start going, and stop. And that would obviously extend the time out at these things, you would be building these things. The problem with doing that, though, is like Lou said, inflation goes through the roof at that point, interest rates and so forth.
It reminds me of when you watch these home building or home reno shows, and the host says to the person, so you're going to act as your own project manager and schedule the trades and all that stuff? Yeah, sure. Why not? I'm clever. I'm really good at what I do. Yeah, but what you do is run a bakery or whatever else you do. You may be great at that, but this is not your area of expertise. But when you take what should be, it should be A, we have an idea for an attraction. B, let's plan it and have it all ready. C, now we can run the costs on it and see what we can afford to do and cut it back to the degree we have to. And now we can schedule it so it all comes out in accordance with that budget.
Right.
Not if you stretch it out, it doesn't. Not if you turn it on and turn it off. Because just as we were saying just now, as I was saying about having the staffing issues of getting everybody off that ride, turning on and turning off a construction project has all that kind of stuff too. Yeah.
Absolutely it does. It's you have to schedule crews out in various ways and so forth. Bob, I know you've been dying to answer. You've been dying to talk, so please go ahead, take the floor.
No. I was just gonna reiterate a couple things. Plus, there's something I was gonna go back to on the virtual queue because we were talking about that.
Please.
Theme Park Casual had mentioned in the chat that he had heard the same thing was happening at Haunted Mansion because Haunted Mansion is now open at Disneyland, and we've been going through it. Now, I haven't heard that the same type of virtual queue stuff has been happening at Disneyland with Haunted Mansion. Not sure what Theme Park Casual has heard, but obviously. The theme park, I got Theme Park Casual on mine now. The virtual queue for Haunted Mansion has been working very well. In fact, the other night, it was crazy. I got there, like at 4:30 p.m., totally forgot to do a virtual queue, signed in at 5:45 for the Haunted Mansion. I was put on the backup list at 288, and I still got on the ride before 10 p.m. that night. So it's crazy. It's been working really, really well, and I'm surprised, and it's been smooth, but there have not been any real operational issues with the ride per se. So
well, they didn't ruin it like Tiana, and it's been a ride it's one of those Bob Gurr classics that just continues to run unless you screw with it. Then it doesn't run much anymore. But well, look, I mean, it would be the days of all days if Jonas by Adventure got up to boarding group 288. I mean, that would be gangbusters
Amazing.
business, and it's not even doing, I don't think, a quarter of that. So
Wow.
it's
And even with fewer people in the park overall than they'd hoped for, they must be somewhere else making those lines longer. Or not doing anything at all and going home and saying, I went and paid full price and all I got was 3 rides and a Dole Whip. You know, so it's just bad show, as they say.
they're over at Disneyland.
I know that. Oh, sorry, I was going to say I know that at Walt Disney World, a lot of people are staying in the resorts. That's always true. But I can tell you that the parking lots are very empty. Magic Kingdom, super empty parking lot.
Wow.
And granted, I do not know how many people typically drive in and park at the park, but when I drive in there as a local, I can just tell you, I don't think the parking lot is not even a quarter full ever. I haven't seen it like that. I mean,
that's a measure of local support more than anything else, because if it's not there, it's not there.
Yeah.
In other words, the people at the resorts is another story, but people, well.
And I would love to know, Ron, what those resort parking lots look like, because, I mean, you've got anywhere between, 38,000, 45,000 rooms, something like that on property. The way that Disney, makes money from Walt Disney World is from those hotel room stays. I mean, it's really where the main bulk of that comes from. Otherwise, it's just basically Disneyland, but with 4 parks instead of 2. So it's I'd love to see those numbers, because man, oh man, if
I'm staying fewer days than I used to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we used to plan it out, and we finally, after several others that we liked, changed or one thing or another, wound up our home hotel, so to speak, was Boardwalk. And a lot of that was about going to Flying Fish for dinner, because it's a great, great restaurant. Or it was. I don't know if it is anymore.
Right.
But we also love Epcot. And so we would figure out about half our meals would be at the resort and about half of them would be in the parks. Well, if I have to take a day off, who loses my business as far as the restaurants are concerned? And if it's the parks, did they lose the merch I might have bought walking to the restaurant? Or did they lose the snack I might have bought riding the rides before I went to dinner, or whatever? It all ripples through.
It absolutely does. And this is why I want to go ahead and pivot just a little bit towards this conversation in particular, because I think this is a very fascinating article. We've obviously covered this on That Park Place Network. I want to bring a different spin to it, but this is from Bloomberg, how Walt Disney World is trying to make amends with unhappy guests. Disney's price hikes, crowds, and customer service missteps have caused many to sour on the parks. Now the company is working to earn them back. Talks about how, they're implementing certain moves in order to improve customer.
And they're all
experience.
bull. I remember this article. I read this a day or two ago, and it's they're working really hard because, they're going to do these things that won't make any difference.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and you have a lot of stories of people who are like, hey, we love the parks, we love going, every single year, but we just can't do it this year because it's just so darn expensive. Also, as I say, meanwhile, Magic Kingdom park attendance sunk almost 20% in the same years, from 21 million visitors in 2019 to 17 million in 2022, the most recent full year of which data is available. That's a particular interesting segment right there, because usually the Themed Entertainment Association would have its report out listed for 2023 attendance numbers for the parks. That includes not just Disney parks, but Universal parks and basically all the amusement parks nationwide. Actually worldwide, to be more precise. But for some reason, that report hasn't come out now, and there's speculation. Okay.
About the attitude and about the people. Those are the stories that people go home and tell their friends when they ask, how was your trip? Those are the stories that make people say, I'm not going back there. They didn't treat me with respect. Especially when they're raising the prices, they should be more than cordial. And that doesn't cost them anything other than having managers who emphasize it and train it and maintain it and reprimand when it doesn't happen.
Well, that's just it, Lou. If you are satisfied with your experience, you will, on average, tell about 3 people. If you're dissatisfied with your experience, you'll tell 10 people. And that's kind of catching up to Disney, I think.
And let's face it, that is a rule that we sensible people who read reviews of, I don't care whether it's restaurants or hotels or doctors or lawyers or anything out there in the vast panoply of online reviews, take with a grain of salt, which is everything's going to get more negatives than it does positives, because negative people bitch and positive people just go on from there. Back when I was doing restaurant reviews and somebody would tell me that a place that I'd raved about gave them a bad time, I always asked them, did you say anything to anybody? And 99% of the time they said no. I said, because even a great place can have an off night, or a person who's not trained right or is in a bad mood or whatever. The question is, what do they do to fix it? And if you don't tell them, but now that we can all tell the world without telling them, you notice on some of these, I don't care whether it's Yelp or, I'm just using that name as an example, not them particularly, TripAdvisor. When people complain or praise, when the management keeps track of that and has somebody always offering a response saying, we're sorry that happened to you, or we're glad you had a good time, or something that gives the place a personal connection to all those other people reading. You know, I always say the whole world is about the old THX sound logo. The audience is listening.
Yes.
It's not about the people that are talking back. It's about all the other people that are watching that going on. And the person who watched this woman get a nasty response, who never got the response herself, but said, oh man, that's not Disney. That's not what I come here for. Or the people who watched the Bibbidi Bobbidi exchanges or the Evil Queen exchanges or whatever, who never were personally involved in the situation, but had their kids ask them later what that was all about.
Well, that's the thing. It's so interesting that you say this, because I'm a big fan of Gordon Ramsay. I like the Kitchen Nightmares and so forth. And basically, you learn 2 things on that show. One is you're only good as your last dish. 2, just because people don't complain doesn't mean that they're satisfied with their service. They just, a lot of times, they just don't come back. And I think
they just don't want the aggravation. If I complain, because they're gonna, it's like, well, I'll give you an example. The other night, I got a craving for ice cream. And I happen to like Haagen-Dazs coffee ice cream. And I went on DoorDash and I said, send me 2 pints of ice cream. Granted, it's ridiculous. By the time you add the deliveries and the fees and it was like $20 for 2 pints of ice cream. But when it came, the bag, the package, everything smelled like it had been sitting in somebody's ashtray for the last 10 years. Cigarette smoke makes me physically ill. I'm extremely allergic to it.
Okay. I can appreciate that. Yeah.
So when I went on there and complained, eventually they sent me a refund and a $5 credit. But man, did I have to jump through hoops with, did you get a medical bill for this illness that you got from our ice cream? Yeah. I'm going, what? What do you mean a medical? And it took me 4 people. I'll need to escalate this. I remember years ago seeing an article about how the service was so good on SAS Airlines. Why? Because they gave the people in the cabin the ability to fix things and to say no and to say yes, rather than having to up at 5 levels of management before they got it resolved.
Right.
This kind of thing should never happen. But if it does, there should be a consequence.
It shouldn't happen.
You're 100% sure you didn't order ashtray coffee flavor?
Hey, ashtray coffee flavor, that's
and it literally made me nauseous. I mean, it really did. So it was that bad.
I'm the same way, Lou. I am absolutely the same way.
You're only as good as your last experience. And in this case, in Lou's case, it's like, I don't know if I'm necessarily going to go with that company again because of the experience that I had and how they treated me. In this way, in Disney's way, it's like, look, the last experience I had, we were nickel and dime to death. A lot of the things that they used to provide for an all-inclusive vacation, like free magic bands or free parking or whatever the case may be, that wasn't there before, and people just don't come back. And I think that's kind of catching up with them. On the flip side, you have Epic Universe right down the way, and they're very consumer focused. I think in that way, it's paying off. Not to the degree that I think they would like this year. Their last earnings not so good, but
I don't have access to Disney's books. I don't have access to their financial analysis. But let me tell you something. If it cost them $500 a passenger to give everybody that free ride from the airport and back, it would be worth it.
Yes, absolutely.
Keeping people within the property, within the scheme of things, without a car, right. It's got to be worth it. And the idea that somebody said, "Oh, well, why should we give them all of that? Let's cut it out." It just shows you that it's all well and good to come up with a great idea, but unless you sustain the support for it and you remind the people who are beneath you later why it was put in and what it means, it's useless. It's absolutely insane. When they cut that, I thought, what is wrong with you people? Are you insane?
The bubble scheme was like the best scheme in the world, honestly, because you have a captured audience that can't go anywhere else. Wait,
it goes all the way back to buying the property, because every story we hear is Walt hated that all those little motels in Anaheim cashed in on his idea, and that's why he bought so much land to isolate it from the world and say anything in here is mine. But why should we remember that history? Because we're only managing something that matters to people.
Well, the people working there inherited that, so did they necessarily care? Well, I guess we'll see. But I was going to say the TEA report, the Themed Entertainment Association report that usually comes out every single year. One of the reasons why people are speculating as to why that hasn't been posted just yet is because, well, maybe Universal may have beaten Disney on a couple of its parks that, well, Disney's not necessarily a fan of having that information released. So, very interesting stuff going behind the scenes. And one of the reasons why that might have been the case is because of this report, I think. This is the kind of spin I wanted to put on this that was a little bit different from the previous coverage that we've seen. This is a report by Lending Tree. Now, it's a little older of a report. It goes back some ways, and this specific article with these findings was posted on June 10th, 2024. But this was very interesting. So 45% of Disney-going parents with young children have gone into debt for a trip. This by Maggie Davis and Dan Shepard, editor. So with Disney prices as high as they are, once upon a dream has become once upon a debt for many Americans, particularly parents with young children. According to the latest Lending Tree survey, over 2,000 U.S. consumers, 24% of Disney parks goers have gone into debt for a trip. Now, figure that rises to 45% among parents with children younger than 18. This is the key findings.
And by the way, it's not mortgage interest debt, it's credit card interest debt.
Oh, yeah. We'll get into that.
So it's expensive debt.
The magic of Disney is sending parents into debt. Among the 77% of theme park going parents with children younger than 18 who have been to Disney, 45% have gone to debt for a Disney trip, with 83% acquiring it most recently in the past 5 years. Among Disney goers, 24% have gone to debt for a trip, a 33% increase from 18% in our 2022 survey. The memories are worth the debt for most parents, however. Among parents of young children who have gone to debt for a Disney trip, 59% say that they have no regrets. Additionally, 90% of parents who have taken their children to Disney say it was a treat. Overall, parents of young children took an average of $1,983 in Disney debt related debt.
Now, this third one is very interesting.
Concessions broke the budget for many Disney goers. Again, this nickel and diming that we've seen. When asked what expenses cost significantly more than planned, 65% of those with Disney debt said in-park food or beverages. 48% said general transportation costs. Again, that Magical Express we were talking about. And 47% said accommodations. Fortunately, 41% of Disney Parks goers were able to use a discount on their most recent trip. That is very, very interesting. Obviously, there's the last statistic right there that you can read on screen. Now,
does that mean AP discounts or what do they call it? Tables in Wonderland discounts or all those other things? Or
it could be dining plan. It could be
Tables in Wonderland is not back.
Oh, well, there you go.
Mm-hmm. Now, I kind of want to throw it to you guys. Is this what you have been seeing? And if people have been kind of, I don't know, withholding on maybe another Disney vacation, is it because of cost or something else?
Well, I think it has been a lot of cost. I've been talking to a lot of people going to the parks lately, and when I'm not streaming, and it's always interesting to meet new people wherever they're from, country, another state, whatever. But the thing is that a lot of them have been complaining about how expensive it is, and they're like, wow, it cost me this much to come down. I didn't expect there to be this many people. Now, unlike Walt Disney World, Disneyland is actually pretty busy and pretty packed, especially Monday through Thursday right now. I think the enchant magic key holders are able to go back as of yesterday, so that's gonna fill up the parks. We obviously have that $69 ticket deal for the Anaheim residents.
Is school still out?
A lot of people. Well, my daughter went back to school today, but most of the schools start in about a month. But there are
because I remember going to school in Southern California. It was always like right around the World Series that school started again.
Yeah,
but on the East Coast they start a lot earlier.
Yeah, so my daughter's school is kind of like the East Coast. They start, this week. She gets out before Memorial Day, but then she goes back, before Labor Day, obviously, where some of the other schools are a little bit different. But the thing is that they're like, it's hot, it's expensive. I didn't expect it to be so crowded. When's the best time to come? They're usually asking me. And the one thing I keep hearing is that some of the people are like, well, I just can't wait till the Magic Key comes back, so I'll buy one of those, and then it will be more cost effective. But I don't know about you guys, and I'll throw that out here right now because I've been hearing two different rumors from my Disney sources. And one is that they're going to bring the Magic Key back, and the Inspire Pass is going to be $2,000. The other one says no, it's going to be $1,800. Well, regardless, $1,800 right now at $1,650. I can't imagine that it's going to be that much more expensive. I mean, they're going to shoot themselves in the foot if they keep raising the price like that. But again, they feel like they can because the parks is what's making the money, at least especially Disneyland and some of the other theme parks. But I don't know. It's getting to that point, and I think we've already gotten to that point before, because remember, they stopped selling the Magic Key, they started selling Magic Keys again in March, and then suddenly in June, as summer was hitting, boom, cut it off,
right.
And you can't buy them. They did the same thing last year where they stopped selling right before summer, and then after summer they open it up back up, in October.
Usually open it up in August.
Bigger price, right? And granted, it only went $50 up more for the Inspire Key, but who's to say that maybe this time they don't raise another couple $100? I don't know. But
the question,
a lot of people are really concerned about that. The
question becomes, if it's going into debt $2,000 to go, do you go as often? In other words, there are so many people who made an annual pilgrimage at least to Disney World or Disneyland, and certainly people in Southern California more often than that. So that thing of buying the annual pass for a lot more money may be offset by the fact that, I can go more often. But still, the first thing that came to me when you brought this article up? The advice that they always give people about weddings, about don't start off your new family, your life, with a big debt for an expensive wedding.
Sure.
The
big party, right?
Yeah.
I do want to actually read that last bullet point right here because I think it's interesting. Cost is the biggest factor for those who haven't visited a theme park. Of the Americans who have been to a theme park, just 25% haven't visited a Disney park. 60% of those who have never visited a theme park say it's too expensive, so that the idea of value, price, is not quite in line there. Meanwhile, 31% say it's too far away, and 26% say they can't stand the lines. Fair enough. Across all Americans, 40% say that their willingness to visit Disney has been affected by its political views, either positively or negatively. Now that's particularly interesting, I think.
I apologize for the noise. My lawnmower guy just showed up out of the blue. But you know what? The question is, where do those things overlap?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. It is.
Where's that Overton window?
Do the people with the political issues also, have an issue with? And when I see can't stand the lines, it reads to me like they made up a survey, and that was one of the options they gave people if they didn't want to.
Sure.
Yeah. So,
I don't know.
Nobody
I have a lot of
volunteered that.
Don't like the line, so I think that's a valid point. But because some people don't. I mean, I got to tell you, a lot of the viewers I have that watch my streams, they actually, send me feedback saying, you know what, I hate going to the parks, I hate standing in line. I get to go on the ride with you, even though I'm not actually physically on the ride. I love it. So there are people that are like that. Obviously, I think what's really interesting though is, and this is a conversation I've been having with some friends and family members, is that when you've got theme parks like Disney who are just starting to really, really just gouge you more and more every single year, and then you see theme parks like Knott's Berry Farm. I mean, they just announced that, hey, when it comes to our annual passes for this next year, they have an add-on for the park. So if you had the gold or the platinum pass, I guess it was prestige, you could pay $100 more and add on all the parks that Cedar Fair has. Well, now there's Six Flags Entertainment, and they just announced that, hey, you pay that $100, you're going to include all these Six Flag parks, and they list them. Now, granted, they're not going to start until 2025 when you buy this pass, so it's not going to kick in until then for the Six Flags parks.
Well, yeah, but that was partly a factor of when the merger happened and the fact that they already sold them for this year. So.
Right.
But that's a good point, you see, because just as I left the other show, they were talking about the earnings call stuff again and about, well, what was going to happen. And I said, in LA, if you can go to both Knott's and Six Flags on your annual pass, that's a wide variety of stuff that you might live closer to, certainly in the case of Magic Mountain, than Disneyland. And it might be a reason why, well, maybe I'm not going to buy the annual pass at Disney this year.
But
likewise, when the equation in Orlando becomes an either or between Universal and Disney, as opposed to let's do it all, the new park. Now, as I said, what they were saying was, well, with a recession may be coming on, nobody could have predicted 5 years ago or 8 years ago, whenever they started thinking of Epic Universe, it was going to open on the heels of, I hope, a short recession. But it certainly makes it a different equation in Orlando because of that factor. Same thing is going to be true in Southern California. And let's not forget Vegas is out there 5 hours away. So,
Yeah.
All I'm saying is all of this stuff about the expense, when it becomes something you do every year, in addition to other things, it's one thing. But when it becomes something you go into debt, $2,000, and they didn't say $2,000 per family or per kid, I don't know which that number applied to. But if you got 3-4 kids, it's going to be more than that.
Well, the 2,000 was
so
top line annual.
So the question is, do I do this at all? It's not a question of do I do it halfway.
Right.
It's
but
do I
that's
do
my
it
whole
every
point.
other year, or every third year, as opposed to every 6 months in LA.
Well, but that's the whole point, is that you've got other avenues where you can go and go to theme parks and get more for your money. So I think that, more people are going to be doing that instead of,
and raising the prices doesn't make it any better. It makes it worse, especially when you give them less for their money. And they're talking 25% increase across the board on all the U.S. parks over the next year.
Well, what's interesting too is it's not just, so they talked about, the costs and whatnot. One of the things that I thought was interesting, and this is kind of bizarre and weird, but last Wednesday, they had the Lightning Lane available, right? They were charging $35 on a Wednesday for the Lightning Lane. I'm like, what?
Whoa.
It was weird. On Sunday, I was there and they were only charging $30. But for some reason, they were charging $35 middle of the week. I don't know if it was something they were testing.
Was there a big convention in town that the moms and kids were going while the men were at the meeting or whatever? Because
nope.
Golly.
It was just the weirdest thing. And I was there streaming that day. And I was like, why is this $35? Didn't need it. Didn't buy it or anything like that. I try not to when I can't, when I don't need to. But the thing is, I thought, well, that's really weird. Why is it 30 the rest of the week and all of a sudden 35 on a Wednesday? I'd expect that on a weekend, but not during a weekday. But the weekdays have been really, really busy between Monday and Thursday lately. And
it's probably a demand issue.
Could be. But again, on Thursday, I paid attention. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it was all $30 again. I was like, what the heck? That's weird.
Oh, somebody said, let's try it.
Maybe.
And, let's see what the market will bear. Although I was joking that for D23, at least they will be celebrating the fact that if you're coming up from out of town for that, you can actually, instead of not being able to go to the park at all because people are on strike, you'll get to have the magical experience of seeing lots of go away green walls. So.
Well, a lot of stuff is down right now. I mean, the list is absolutely endless and so unfortunate. Well, hopefully that means
a lot of them just started yesterday.
Yep. Oh man, it's a long list. Ron, I believe did you have something to say?
You're muted, Ron.
Unmute. Sorry about that.
You're fine.
So I feel like all of this comes down to neglect from the upper echelon, the very, very top, Bob Iger, and all the way down. Bob Iger spent so much of his time acquiring IP and focusing on the movies Disney Plus, all the entertainment side of the company. He forgot about what is currently making this company its bread and butter, which is Walt Disney World and the parks. I believe that, what is it, like 30% of Disney revenue across the board comes from Walt Disney World, I believe. It's around 30%. Correct me if I'm wrong, Vash.
Isn't it profit, not revenue?
Yeah, it's profit.
It's profit.
Wow.
So there you
Profit.
go.
So, okay, so that's crazy to neglect your bread and butter. It would. The only thing that goes through my mind is to think, well, maybe he was thinking, okay, well, that's safe. But no matter what business you're in, it doesn't matter what you're doing. You can never think that you have anything in that business that's safe. Everything always has to be kept up. And that doesn't matter if it's your bread and butter, if it's your weakest thing. Yes, you work on your weaknesses, but you don't neglect the thing that's making you the most
And you
money.
only lose your reputation once.
Yeah.
And
So,
yes.
I mean, when Walt left this world, okay, his primary focus was Walt Disney World. His primary focus was going forward with that. And I am sure that, yes, the Disney company has evolved a lot since then, but I don't think that we should neglect the fact that Walt himself kind of had the foresight to know that the parks were going to be what they were in a sense. I don't know exactly, but to see that we have leadership now who, I mean, it's just one thing on top of another thing. It's like, first of all, let's take all the things that were always included and nickel and dime them out, and then on top of that, you've got the political issues, and on top of that, you've got the price raising issues, and on top of that, it's not just the prices to get in the parks, but we're gonna make people pay for what was free as far as fast passes are concerned. So now you've got that added expense. People are going into debt for this trip, and then having a bad experience to which they're never going to want to come back. One of Disney's primary moneymakers was the fact that while you're at Disney World, they would typically invite you to book your next Disney trip with some type of a discount or incentive. I would imagine that is probably the biggest business that they've lost is people that are there. Maybe they're trying to rebook them and they're like, nope, we're not coming back. We're done.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the big question is this. We live, obviously, in inflationary times. We see charts on news programs and on websites of how much has food gone up, how much has fuel gone up, how much has rent gone up, how much has transportation gone up. You know the only reason why Disney or those kinds of things are not on that chart? Because they're not necessities.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to eat and you have to turn the heat and the air conditioning on and you have to drive to work, but you don't have to go to Disneyland. And so to have a competitive edge, you should be lower in inflation than those things. They're beating it.
Disney's
by large degrees as well. You can see actually some of that inflation reflected right here in Trian's old white papers. Do you remember the Trian white paper? I do. And it's a big report actually undertaken by Nelson Peltz. And one of the observations that he made for his argument to be on the board was Universal's expansion in Orlando requires a more urgent and targeted response from Disney. Disney World in Orlando contributes approximately 1/3 of Disney's operating income. That's profit, folks. Universal's expansion in the same market will bring new competition to Disney World and threaten Disney's leadership position. Given the new serious competitive threat Epic Universe presents, Disney needs to fortify its leadership position with new investment. Just how much of the $60 billion of CapEx is earmarked for new attractions at Walt Disney World specifically, and when will that capital be spent? Now, Disney did go on to say, oh, well, we're earmarking like half of it towards new investments, and how much of that is going to be Walt Disney World. I'm sure it's going to be the greater share, but they also said that, hey, the bulk of our investments are going to be on the back end of that 10-year plan. Well, that doesn't start until what, 2028?
That Bob gave was, well, we've known about this for years, and that's why we've been adding sequentially various attractions. And like we've got Tiana coming out. Oops, it doesn't work. Oh, like we're redoing Epcot. Oops, it's a drag. Oh, like we're doing the Country Bears. Oops, it bursts into flames. It simulated.
Well, Well, no, he was trying to attribute stuff like Avatar. It's like, whoa,
exactly.
Avatar, that was announced in 2011.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Competing with Epic Universe on that same scale? There's no way. It's
I don't have any connections inside upper management of any of these companies. I really don't. But I have to think that the people at even McDonald's, which is not having a good day lately, they're not waiting to see what new kind of hamburger Burger King comes out with. They're developing something. I know somebody who was the executive chef for Sonic, and he had come from a fancy high-end spa hotel background, but he was always trying to think of a new thing. He was always well, I wrote a whole article about it on the that Park Place thing about anticipating as opposed to reacting. That's what good managers do.
right.
And where does that leave Bob?
That's a big question right now.
Watch how you say that Bob word, okay? I'm gonna get offended.
Let's go ahead and
Anyway,
It's a different Bob.
talk about
Not that
Bob.
Bob.
But in just a moment here, I want to go ahead and put on this super chat on screen.
go and show
Go and Shogi with the super chat. In 2022, a cast member moved my mom's personal wheelchair from Kilimanjaro Safari. When I asked where they put it, they told me, just go look for it. That's for $10.
Yeah, just go hobble around looking for it because you can't walk, and that's why you have a wheelchair.
Terrible.
Roll around, you'll bump into it sooner or later.
That is
Bob and I have both been Disney cast members, and there's no way, there's not a chance, I'm sure either one of us would have ever done anything like that.
No.
It is
well, and I've seen it happen with the strollers, and I mean, it happened to me, unfortunately, one time where I was like, "Oh, you moved my stroller? Yeah, we put it over." They tell you the area, but they don't tell you exactly where to put it, obviously, because they probably don't know which stroller you have, and that was always frustrating, having to go find it. But usually, and that's kind of weird because usually the wheelchairs, the EVCs, all that stuff, the scooters, they always stay very close to where the person's going to get off the ride. So I'm kind of shocked by that one. But I will say,
I'm going to guess that you got trained to make sure that you kept track of things like that, and that you would never react that way.
well,
So why aren't the current people being trained that way?
Well, so here's an interesting example, and this is Knott's Berry Farm. This just happened to me this past weekend, and this is my experience. So everyone knows that Knott's Berry Farm security is way better and way smoother than it is at Disneyland, right? Disneyland takes a long time. They go through everything, and the new thing where they have these plexiglass little windows that they take your stuff and put behind. It's kind of a pain. Well, at Knott's Berry Farm, you walk through the security thing. If it beeps, you go to security to have them look through your backpack. You get in and out really, really fast, really quick. Well, this time I knew I was going to get beeped because I always have my equipment with me. I go over there. I show the security guy, and he goes, "Take everything that's metal out and put it in this bin." And I'm like, "What? What am I doing? Why am I doing that? You guys just normally go through my backpack, check everything out, and then hold my backpack while I walk through the scanner." Nope. Put everything out into this bin here. And I'm like, am I going to have to repack all this stuff? What the heck, So I was like, why are we doing this? Did a new policy change or something like that? He goes, "Sir, do what I'm asking you to do." Very, just not very nice. I was like, okay. So I start doing what he asked me to do. And I go, this is kind of ridiculous. And I go, so what happens after I put all this stuff in this bin? Are you going to go through the bin? "Oh, no, the bin stays on this side, and we're going to take your backpack. You're going to hand your backpack through the scanner to the security guard on the other side. Then you're going to walk through the other side. Then you're going to pack up your backpack." I'm like, wait, you just had me take out all the metal stuff, and this is in a bin. And he's like, "Just do what I'm asking you to do." I'm like, whoa, what's with the attitude, man? I'm like, okay, no problem. This is new to me. When did this change? This past week. So there was a lead from security who actually was standing at the end, and I looked at him and I go, "Hey, so just kind of curious." And I'm packing in my backpack. Go, "When did this all change, and why are you guys doing this? And why does he have such an attitude?" And he goes, "Sorry about that." He goes, "You know what? We have so many brand new employees apparently Six Flags has really made a lot of people upset with their new policies, and employees are leaving in droves. We can't train people fast enough to bring them on board. So instead of training them the proper way of doing this, Six Flags Entertainment has now come up with a new policy of, hey, we're just going to do it this because it's faster and quicker. I'm like, no, the old way was faster and quicker. And it would have been easier if you just trained them how to properly, say hi to people and whatnot. The employee was getting mad at me because I was questioning him so much because it never happened to me before. So it happens at other theme parks, obviously. It's not just Disney, right? But it's kind of unfortunate that, you see changes like this. And I was wondering if and when things would change at Six Flags Entertainment, with the Cedar Fair parks and whatnot, and how those would be implemented. Well, now I know with security. And the security guard said, look, we're hiring more people, but we can't hire fast enough. We can't train them fast enough. And so we're trying to guide them. And obviously, they don't know how to do things.
But you see, the same way that theme parks in general attract sometimes people with bad attitudes about children, for security, you attract all of these guys that dress up like cops and wander around the world because they want to be an authority because they feel like you're not. And so they have an attitude. They have a chip on their shoulder.
Well,
and the proper hiring practice without a rush would filter those people out. But they're not doing it because they need the bodies.
Right. Well, and I'm not sticking up for this guy at all. But I will say I was questioning him quite a bit because I was like, well, this is new. I don't know what's going on. And so maybe, he's gotten that question several times that day. I don't know. It was later in the afternoon. And that was the only bad experience I had that day at the park. But I thought it was really weird and interesting that was a new policy, and that, at least I got to talk to the lead. The lead was very nice. He apologized for the guy's behavior. He said, hey, this is what we're doing. Unfortunately, this is the third time that has changed in the last 2 weeks. I'm like, third time? That's crazy. So we'll see. I mean, unfortunately, that's just the way things go at all these different parks. And we're going to see more of that at Six Flags Entertainment, I bet.
Well, Go and Shogi has an accompanying chat with that, and very, very sorry to hear your experiences here, Go and Shogi. And thank you so much for super chatting us in order to tell us this, because I think this is most relevant to the state of the parks, especially when on the consumer service level. Guest services wasn't any help either. They made my mom feel terrible. She felt like a burden. That is awful. That is absolutely awful. Completely disgraceful. I think not only with your security issue that you were talking about there, what you had experienced, Bob, I think that has been happening with cast members just in general, that they're hiring so fast in order to fill in ranks that they just didn't have enough time to properly train people in I think how people expect cast members to actually be. Now, some of that slowed, I think, in most recent days, but for so long, for so many years, I think that was the case. And well, the bad sentiment, I think made its way around. Like Lou said, you only lose your reputation once, right?
Well, and with all due respect to training and need more people and all the rest of it, 99% of anything is casting. When you're interviewing people, if you're doing your job and they're jerks, you don't hire them to have interaction with the public. But if you're just saying, I got to hire 12 people today, come hell or high water, number 12 might be a jerk, but it's number 12 and it's 5 o'clock and let's just put him through. And the idea that at the very least, these people are not inculcated with the idea that the guest's happy experience is directly relatable to you having a job here, because if people don't show up, we can't pay you. They don't make that simple connection.
Yeah, I will say I'm surprised. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off there, Ron.
Oh, no. Well, I was just going to say that, the other issue today with hiring is not just that they're hiring fast, is that they have a checklist of who they can bring in, where the first and foremost things on the checklist have to do with DEI. Do you fit in this? They're asking you. As a matter of fact, I tell you what, I just went to look at an application for a job, and this was not Disney. It was an airline. The second question on the application is, what preferred pronouns do you go by? And it literally had 30 different pairs of pronouns. So you could check which one it had, like Z, this, that. They were words that I've never heard of that don't seem to fit into the English language. And I'm like, why would you hire? It was absolute insanity to me. I'm like, as soon as I saw it, I'm like, you know what? I would never work for this company. I won't do it. Because to me, you're looking for people that might actually present a danger in the workplace, that might have some type of a mental illness. I don't want to be in that environment as an employee.
Did you
or
slide
a
it
customer
back to them
or a customer?
Or that's very much agreed. Did you slide it back to them, Ron, and say, you know what, you're just not the right fit for me?
I didn't stop right there. And like, I didn't. I'm like, it was. I honestly, my mind was literally like, what in the actual heck is going on with our society that they would
What
even
in
ask
the
this?
wide world of sports is this?
Oh, terrible. Terrible.
If you come into an interview or a situation like that, and you are a person who might have that proliferation or whatever, and they see that and then they cordially ask, I understand that. But to put it right in front of an application, I'm like, whoa. That's not normal. That's weird.
Right.
It was Allegiant. It was Allegiant 80s, man.
Goodness gracious.
Well, and I was going to say, guest services, typically I don't have those type of experiences, and usually guest service is a little bit better than, some of the other employees or cast members at the parks. But not always, unfortunately. So I'm really sorry that happened to you, Go and Shogi. But, thankfully that's usually not the normal case. And that was one of those one-offs. It's just unfortunate it happened with you and your mom, and that they made her feel terrible. So sorry to hear that.
Very sorry to hear that, and thank you so much for your contribution in supporting this channel. Amazing super chats indeed. Now, Lou, are you going to be okay for one more segment with us?
Well, if it's short, I'll stick. But there is an outer presence that's telling me I'm too tired and I should knock off. But let's try it. What the hell?
All right, well, we'll try it.
Okay.
You clock out.
Vash has met my boss, and she's a rough
met
taskmaster in her own way.
She is absolutely fantastic. Speaking of things that, well, I mean, maybe they're not so fantastic, but they're better now than they were before. The Disney stock price, guys. Woohoo! Alrighty, we're up a little bit right now from being down quite precipitously in most recent days. Took a big hit. Well, I know.
I'm saying it only because when those dips happen, they come back, and that's for the whole world. The issue is not coming back. I would guess that, first of all, because it's such a short dip of a day, there wasn't a lot of time or interest in people putting in a buy order saying, when it gets back to 90, buy me some more. But I bet you was a whole hell of a lot of, when it drops below 90, dump me out, or dump X percentage of my stock out. That's the way these things work. And we should probably say we don't give financial advice on this channel.
No financial advice, indeed.
But anyway,
absolutely.
But you see what I mean? In other words, the dropping below that magic number was a bigger deal, even in the midst of a general drop off in the whole wide world, than coming back up above it for a little bit of snorkeling before they drop again.
Oh, absolutely. And there's been a ton of volume all over the place with Disney's stock and so forth. A lot of changing hands, but go ahead, Ron.
Is the earnings call tomorrow?
Yeah,
the earnings call is
Valiant Renegade.
All right. So basically, this is a bump up from somebody at Disney saying, "Hey, somebody go get some stocks. We can bump this up for the earnings call." that's
so. I've been reading some of the trades this morning, and they expect and anticipate, and we'll go over actually one of those, a pretty solid earnings. We'll see if that actually transpires, but it's. I don't think there really has been anything that really get investors, gung ho crazy about the Walt Disney Company stock.
What percentage of the revenue did we say that the Disney World parks are?
30%.
30%.
Profit.
Well, okay. So we know that the attendance has been off. Period. What that means in particular about ticket prices and hotels and merch and food and all that is irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say that 30% as of tomorrow morning when they talk is 28 or 27, let alone 10 or 15. That's still a big, huge drop, guys. That's hundreds of millions of dollars.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't see how they can spin that any other way than, well, it's hot in the summertime. People don't go.
It's so crazy. It's so insane.
Well, we had a lot of rain because of that hurricane. And by the way, the sewers broke. Like all this stuff that's happening in the last few days, the stock market fell, the whatever. This is a quarter, not a day or 2 or 5 or a week. It's 12 weeks, right? So let's see what happens.
Let's take a look at how Disney might be looking to either increase the stock price or maybe turn some things around here, because I think this Motley Fool article is very, very interesting and goes into some really interesting points. I kind of want to throw it to you and see if they're correct, if they've had any effect, and we'll cover some other stories associated with this. This by Rick Menures, I believe. Disney stock has a lot to prove this week, August 5th here. Momentum is heading lower ahead of the entertainment leader's critical update on Wednesday. It didn't take long for Walt Disney to go from the belle of the ball to seeing its golden carriage turned into a pumpkin. Shares of Disney, which were trading 38% higher in 2024 at its March peak, are now trading lower to date. I wonder what happened in March. What happened in March? Oh, yeah. Didn't Nelson Peltz fail to get on the Disney board and everybody was like, okay, see ya. I think I remember something like that happening. Disney needs a catalyst to get back on track, and it could happen as soon as this week. The company reports on its latest financial results this week on Wednesday, and there's a lot writing on what it has to say about its financial third quarter that ended in June and what it sees happening in the near term.
This next
paragraph
is such a joke.
There's also a big fan event happening later this week. D23
really,
fan
shame on them for even putting that in here. It's such a non-issue.
Yeah,
if you've seen the schedule of what's actually being discussed and announced at D23, it's like, at least it doesn't look like there's going to be a lot of blue sky because there isn't a lot of anything. It's just it's people paying $1,000 to go get VIP seats to listen to people sell them lies. So
I mean, that's the thing, right? So even content now. So I remember when we just had a Comic-Con and all those Marvel announcements that we heard so much about. They didn't move the stock price at all. Any content that they actually announced at D23 is probably not going to move the stock price, and any investments in the parks is probably not going to move the stock price unless they have something to show. Okay.
Look back at all the blue sky BS that we've gotten at D23's past.
Right.
It's never moved a needle. Not one announcement there has ever moved a needle in a real way on a long-term basis. Ever.
And that's my point. It not only does it not move the needle, but the things that would move the needle, like Disney Plus, for example. I mean, they've already announced it today, and maybe we're getting a little bit of a bump from that. We'll go into that later in the show. But there's really nothing at D23 that's going to move the stock price at all, I don't think. And I think it's probably going to be an underwhelming one because, like I said before, like the parks, for example, they said that $60 billion is going to be spent on the latter half of that 10-year plan, not the front half. Again, a lot of those investments aren't going to be activated probably until 2028, and we know that Bob Iger is going to only last until 2026? And then a new CEO might be come in, and they might make their own decisions. Go ahead, Lou.
Let's remember that as much as all of us are told from a young age, you invest for the long term, son. You put your money in, and you wait, and you don't react to the winds of war. The reason for a quarterly earnings call is not just to tell you what happened, which they are obligatorily have to do according to the SEC, but to give you guidance as to what they hope might happen in the next quarter. Spending $60 billion, trillion, zillion dollars in China 10 years from now ain't going to move next quarter worth a damn, period. So, big deal. Next.
Well, yes, and so they talk about in this article about how getting back on track, and they have all these this list of announcements right here. We have poked holes into all of these, and these were all attempts at fending off Nelson Peltz, basically. These were very short-term decisions, and we've seen that with the Venu Sports thing, by the way. If people haven't heard, the price was actually just revealed for Venu Sports. It's going to be $42.99 a month. And by the way, that's probably the introductory price, because they're saying you can lock it in, folks, for 12 months if you want to set it at that $42.
Because please God, don't let you churn it like you do every other online service you've got.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait,
in sports
what is
too,
this
right?
exactly?
Oh,
This
so
is this
Venu
new,
Sports.
improved, every other sport that we didn't show you otherwise, along with Fox and Warner and Discovery and The Man in the Moon, and it's already being sued like crazy. So, they've announced it's only intended to last for 7 years.
Hang on, Lou. Hang on. We gotta take people through the winding story.
Lou's like, just get me through this.
Of Venu Sports. So Venu was a joint. It's a joint venture between three companies. So it's kind of like the Hulu of live sports, right? So you have Warner Brothers Discovery, Fox, the portion that Disney didn't actually purchase because they were prevented from doing so, and then Disney. And they're going to bind they're going to pool all of their coverage between all of their different sports packages together and put it in in this new sports streaming service Venu. Okay, that's the idea behind this. It's going to be $42.99 a month. Doesn't even get you all the sports that you would probably want, or the games that you probably want. Because
if you'll buy a year's worth, it's $42.99. If you want to buy it by the month, you can expect prices may vary in your area.
It's essentially a lessened cable package without the cable. It's on your phone. It's live. There is no like on-demand streaming portion of it. The CEO of this new venture is saying that they're expecting maybe 5 million subscribers in the first 5 years, but that's not nearly enough to make its money back on it. So you're going to be inundated with ads. And this was all an attempt, Ron, to fend off Nelson Peltz, because when they announced this, they didn't have a plan, they didn't have a name, they didn't have anything attached to it. A lot of people said it was antitrust. Go ahead, Lou.
They hadn't told some of these leagues that they were about to resell their stuff.
Yes. They didn't tell the NFL.
God forbid we should actually go to the provider of the sport and make a deal before we announce it to the world.
Right. So they didn't tell the NBA, and so the NBA was like, okay, we're going to get ours, and then they increased the price for their games considerably, and NBC actually ended up getting a whole bunch of those rights. Amazon ended up getting a whole bunch of those rights away from Warner Brothers because David Zaslav didn't want to foot the bill, and now Venu Sports looks a lot less attractive than it did before because there's going to be holes in that coverage.
Let me sum it up in a song, Vash.
Please, go ahead.
Venu wish to watch some sports, even men in women's shorts. Jumping over pole vaults almost.
Oh God!
Your dream will come true.
All of the references. So Ron, does that sound? Maybe not the details of Lou's song, but does that sound like a compelling product to you?
No, I will tell you. For me, I'm not a sports person. Okay, but what would compel me? Okay, if I was a sports person at all and I was Disney, what would compel me to maybe watch sports and maybe pay $43 a month for something is if I could see all of the Gina Carano fights and bring Gina Carano back front and center for everything. Then maybe I'd watch because it would be fun. You know,
it would be named just Carano. That's it. You know,
the Carano.
We should have to change it to have it a U at the
Carano,
end, like Hulu and Fubo and XY. Why all these vowels? I don't know why they're happy with that. But
speaking of Fubo, there were some people who were very upset about this arrangement because it was basically a cabal. It was very not antitrust friendly, as one could probably imagine. So Fubo has levied a lawsuit against Disney. It was just picked up by the District of New York. The the U.S. District Court out there back east. And guess what, Ron? Over this issue, well, the leaders of this whole sports streaming venture are actually going to be compelled to testify and take depositions. So that includes John Nellen, the Fox Corp COO, ESPN chief Jimmy Pitaro, and guess what? Go ahead, Lou.
In the starring role on the stand, Bob Iger is going to have to list and therefore on the testify list if it ever gets to court.
Yep.
Won't that be amusing? They
will have to testify due to this, and they've had to admit already in open court that this whole thing is only scheduled to last. They said 9 years, I believe, and and they like Pro had summed up, and we have a video, I believe, on That Park Place already talking about this in greater detail if you want to go ahead and view that after the show. But they basically have to tear it down before it's even gotten started because they don't want to get sued. They don't want to lose out on this suit. But Fubu, I think, makes a great point. It's like, look, listen, you have essentially pooled all of your sports packages together in a way that is very anti-consumer and is anti-us. And we don't like what you're doing right there. And I think it's appropriate that the FCC or somebody actually take action on this. Anyway, that was part of their horrible attempt to actually fend off Nelson Peltz. And again, some of these issues and more exist with every single one of these bullet points. They just haven't worked out for the long haul. And there's good reason for Disney to roll out a hit parade in February because activist investors were trying to get into Disney's boardroom. Proxy battle that Disney couldn't afford to lose was about to go down at its annual shareholder meeting in early April, so it had to do anything that it could to juice up both its share price and investor enthusiasm. But Disney won the proxy battle, but did it lose the war? The downside to pushing forward a lot of exciting developments is that the subsequent fiscal second quarter in early May would be a disappointment. Well, among many other things, but yes.
So
now it's August.
How did Figment get taller than people? Pardon me for asking simple questions. That's kind of the what does God need with a starship question in that photo, isn't it?
That's how Lou just kind of goes off on different topics.
That's a fair point. Well, these things must be answered. Now it's August, and it's time to see if expectations are so low that even a modest report this week can get the stock moving higher again. Oh, that's a slap across the mouth right there. As the mouse earns, expectations for Wednesday morning's financial update are high. Analysts are bracing for $21.1 billion in revenue for the fiscal third quarter, a 5% decline from what it was a year earlier. Those same Wall Street pros see a profit of $1.09 a share, an increase of 6%, but that trend has been problematic. Analysts were holding out for a fiscal third quarter profit of $1.27 a share just before announcing its second quarter performance 3 months ago. Even a week ago, the market was holding out for a profit of $1.18 a share. So even investors are kind of like, I don't know if this is going to be all that great this time around. What's eating at Disney's media powerhouse? This should be a great time for the Mouse House, right? It has the two biggest movies of the summer ever. This is Inside Out 2, Deadpool, Wolverine, obviously, playing in theaters, crushing the narrative that its movie studio is out of touch with what consumers want. Not so fast. Hang on now. Deadpool, Wolverine, that was largely Ryan Reynolds, okay? We have yet to see if Marvel has fully pivoted. We have heard reports of it. Chris Gore was actually on the show preceding this one on the Pro Show, and he's obviously talked about how they have cleaned house at Marvel, and that is fantastic. That's great. We still have to see what they actually produce. And in Inside Out 2, there might have been references that may have been cut out in the last minute. We don't know. We'll have to see more from these studios in the subsequent years.
I have a question. What does Inside Out 2 not have that the other big animated feature, what was it, Minions 4 Grew Zero or whatever they called it, has?
Potential for merchandise sales?
Yes. Yeah. They are not selling too many plushies of anxiety. Let's just put it that way. And so movies anymore, animated movies anymore, are not just about butts and seats.
Right.
They're about follow through. They're about synergy. They've already got the inside out ride at DCA, right? So, and it's a flat ride with some pretty pictures. So anyway.
Yeah.
This is something about,
they're
talking about it. They've proven that they are in touch with what consumers want. Yeah, sure. Okay. Do it 10 times.
Right.
And then I'll believe you.
That's it. Just because you've had a couple of gusts.
When the star of your own impending movie, none other than Harrison Ford, says, "Well, I only did it because they wanted to pay me a lot of money to go be ridiculous," that's not a real strong endorsement for a movie. It just isn't. I mean, think that, but don't say it. But he doesn't care. What does he care?
It says right here as well, Inside Out 2 is officially the highest grossing theatrical release worldwide over the past year, but it opened in mid-June. It won't move the needle much for the quarter ending June, saving most of its victory laps for future reporting periods. Last month's Marvel blockbuster naturally came out after the quarter came to a close. Disney warned that rising labor costs at its domestic theme parks and challenging year-over-year comparisons to the milestone celebrations at Disney World and Disneyland would eat both ends of the segment's income statement. Disney Plus surprised investors with an earlier-than-expected operating profit for its streaming business in the second quarter, but expects a dip back to the red before returning to profitability for keeps in the fiscal fourth quarter.
Yeah, we'll believe that when we see it.
Well, that's it exactly, right. And I'm sure there's going to be plenty of cuts and so forth. And honestly, that's also part of this price hike that we're now seeing. This was announced today, folks. Yeah. Let's see right here. Disney to raise prices on most streaming plans this fall. This by Jill Goldsmith of Deadline. Disney will hike the price of most streaming plans as of October 17th, the company said today, about a year after its last increase in the fall of 2023. Disney reports earnings tomorrow morning. Media companies across the board have been waging regular streaming price increases over the past several years as the DTC landscape rationalizes, and there's a push to turn profitable. Here's the problem, though. This is a great report out of what is it? I believe it's the Wrap. Yes, the Wrap. Disney Max Hulu is the Max Hulu Disney Plus mega bundle overpriced. A chart, and it has right here essentially a chart that differentiates these streaming services by the price that you pay and demand that these services have, and does price outpace demand. And you can see right there, there's only really one part of this that actually has Disney in the green. Everything else has Disney in the red, including Max, which they just partnered with for their latest bundle. They're out of pace now with this report. Now they're going to increase the price by in some cases as much as 25%.
$2 a month?
Yeah, I have the chart right here.
And that gives you the privilege of doing what? Watching reruns of The Acolyte? Ooh, I want to pay $2 more to see all that again.
It's so true.
Well, it's about value for money. And by the way, that thing where they said the price is going up October. So what did we just say about how In and Out 2 didn't really happen for this quarter's earnings call because it was in the previous quarter or in the next one? Most of it is follow on. So that means the quarter ended in June, right? That they're going to talk about tomorrow morning, right?
Yeah.
So July, August, September. Oops, not October yet. October, November, December. Right. So in other words, we're supposed to think that in 6 months' time, when the next earnings call after the next one happens, that will have made them so much money that they'll be back in the red again and forever.
Well,
but how many people are going to still be paying that much money by then?
That's a fair point.
What's coming out on Disney Plus, let alone Hulu or anything else, between now and then that's going to make people stick around? Especially
Agatha. It's going to be Agatha.
There you go.
Agatha.
And I rest my case.
It's been Agatha all along.
That's a negative ghostwriter.
Agatha's gonna save
and I
Disney
will
Plus
only point out, just to be a further, in the punch bowl. We haven't paid for Hulu yet.
Yeah, we haven't paid for Hulu yet, right? I mean, we're expecting that price to be as much as maybe $21 billion, something like that. At least Disney's side of it. It's probably going to be anywhere between 10 to 15.
Does that count as to whether it's
$billion.
finally profitable forever?
See, that's the thing, right?
Disney Plus, because
they're not taking the acquisitions into account, Lou. What they're doing, I think, with the financials, and maybe Jonas can actually correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I understand, what they're doing is they're just basically taking their monthly expenses against how much revenue they actually pull in and say, hey, look, profit, and not actually taking into account.
I would like to point out,
please.
We say this 400 times a day because we have to about not giving financial advice. But who the hell are we? We're just, four schlubs talking on the internet. Sure. You don't think these top guys from these major investment firms that are buying the majority of the stock and asking the questions at this call tomorrow haven't figured all this out? Mm-hmm. You don't think they're smarter than the PR from the Motley Fool? So what's their problem? Their problem is, and I will tell you again about that book about City of Nets. There's a great bit in there where Preston Sturgis makes a lot of money for Paramount and then tells them, hey, look, for my next 2 pictures, I'd really like to do my own thing, and you'll get them, and you'll make, and I made you $1 billion, whatever it was, not $1 billion, literally in those days. Mm-hmm. And it says, then he realized when they told him, no, sorry, we won't make that deal, that it wasn't about, for them, making money. It was about the fact that if they let him do their own thing, they weren't associated with the success, and therefore it was more about their control than it was even running a profitable business. And that's what these guys are about. It's about we're in charge. Mm-hmm. And we would rather have Disney be second to Universal in theme parks as long as we run it by proxy through people like Bob.
Absolutely.
And so it's the investment flip side of the whole how are you keeping score? It's not tickets to the box office anymore. It's subscribers to the series, to the channel. So anyway, enough of the book, but you get the idea.
Well, let me pose this question to you guys, and then we'll move on.
And then I gotta go.
Topic right here. Yep. I understand. What would get you to subscribe to Disney Plus? That's one. And two, what do you think Disney could do to actually turn the stock price around for good?
Turn back time and have never done it in the first place. The whole industry is realizing. What are they doing? They're going back to the cable model. They're going back to the bundle model. They're going back to what used to work because it don't work no more, and it never would have. And nothing can get me to buy Disney Plus is the answer to the first part. Nothing.
Actually, this whole segment has reminded me because I had pre-bought the year of Disney Plus before the price changed last year, so I got a really good deal. And you reminded me I got to go in and cancel that because I'm not renewing it. It's literally like $50 more for the entire year. No, got to cancel. So thank you for the reminder that I will be
always a pleasure.
Disney Plus.
Oh, goodness gracious. Bob?
And I'll give my big reminder once more. Anybody out there who's still subscribing to Disney Plus for Bluey, buy the discs from Amazon or somebody for $20 and you're done.
Yeah.
Well, you can run them all day long for the kids, and they won't know where it's coming from, and you won't be paying for it every month for the rest of your life.
It's funny because, I have Netflix and a bunch of, these subscriber channels and whatnot. And so when my wife and I wanted to see some stuff that was on Hulu, we were like, oh, let's just do the Disney bundle, try it. So we tried it. I got to be honest with you, and don't get me wrong, there's some good things on Hulu, but we just didn't find it was really, enticing for us to keep it. And so we let it go and we kept the Disney Plus one. And obviously I did the same thing as Ron. My daughter, she loves, a lot of the Disney stuff and content. So I kept it for her, obviously. And I want to show her some of those old things like the Mickey Mouse Club and whatnot and what I grew up with. And so there's a lot of good content on there, but there's also a lot of not so great content, especially all the Star Wars stuff. I mean, my daughter and I are big Star Wars fans, and we're not into all this, crappy stuff they've come out with, unfortunately. So,
and permanent media is out there still. Here's your big chance.
Yes.
What do we tell people every week on the Genre Guys is buy the damn disc and you'll own it.
Right.
And you'll be able to share it with your kids without trigger warnings, let alone re-edits and disappearing.
Well,
they
do a lot of that.
Those trigger warnings are the worst.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no kidding. I'm sick of those too. But yeah, and I do have a lot of stuff on disc that we watch still and whatnot. But it's getting to the point where, I'm gonna have to reevaluate with this new price change, because is it really effective? My daughter watches it a lot, certain things that she likes, but I just don't see that there's a reason to keep having this. I mean, I'm not into the bundle. It's not doing anything for me, and to be honest with you, I feel like other streaming services are doing it better.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
why stay with Disney Plus?
At least with Amazon, I get free delivery.
That's
At least I get. I forget which it is. Peacock or Paramount Plus. I get free with my Walmart Plus, which is delivered.
Paramount Plus.
Something else that happens
Walmart.
to come along with, even if I don't watch it that often. So,
Yeah.
Well, we have a couple of people moving around here. Bob, I want you to stick around just for a second.
Okay.
But Lou,
I'm
I
sorry
know
to
you
spoil the
really
party.
do
This
have
has
to
been
go.
fun, but it's been a long day.
Thank
A
you
good
so
day,
much.
but
Thank
a
you so
long
much.
day. So
Thank
I
you,
gotta
Lou.
go, guys.
I understand.
And
Thank you,
watch
thank
the
you, thank you,
genre,
Lou,
guys.
for
What
all
did
your
we put
time.
up lately, Vash? Here, what was the most
Great
recent
show
one?
Sunday.
Oh, thank you.
A Bridge Too Far.
Guys.
Oh, that's right. A Bridge Too Far is here. And
Mhm.
coming next for people who are members of the Pro Channel, wonderful movie I never even knew existed that Lauren brought us, called The 13th Floor. And it had,
Oh,
the, bad,
you never
it
saw
had the
that?
bad luck
That's a good movie.
of coming out the same year as The Matrix and being more or less the same kind of story. But it's got much more thought behind it to me. Less
Good
action,
movie, very good
certainly.
movie.
But a lot of fun, and I wouldn't miss it for the world. And then we've got, all kind. We just did Alvarez Kelly, one of my favorite good time westerns, complete with a theme song. I love westerns with a sing-song theme song at the beginning. But Alvarez Kelly, that Irish senor. They don't do them like that anymore. Anyway, we enjoy doing those. And then, of course, every Sunday, Vash and I come in here and talk about, God, I never know from the beginning where we're going to wind up, but we wound up some interesting places this past Sunday. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, very interesting places. You can see the restream on this channel right here. And
I love that show.
Everything from the Glamour Tram to the Psycho House and everything in between. Okay, it is always a pleasure with all of you guys. And if you're not watching their shows, you're missing a lot, folks. So watch them, not RFK putting bears in Central Park. It's much more time. Anyway, those are only two choices. I mean, there might be something else. All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Good night.
Thank you.
Bye, Lou.
Night.
Now, Bob, before you exit, I just want to go ahead and ask your opinion on D23 really, really fast. We're going to cover this in much more depth because I know you have a hard out, and I don't want to take up any more of your time than you've already graciously extended to us. So thank you so much for that. I just want to ask you about, have you been hearing some of the stuff online? Have you been hearing some of the reactions from people entering into this reservation system that they have to opt into and getting denied certain panels and so forth after having paid all their money to actually buy into this event? What do you think of D23? Are you going? What are your thoughts?
So I'm going for the first time this year with my daughter, and we're going to be there on Saturday, streaming live, so you can come and join us and whatnot. Now, yeah, I've been getting a lot of feedback just in the last week from friends who are going and friends who decided not to go, and then also just hearing from their friends who are planning on going but can't get into the panels, or they're upset because they're having to do the virtual queues for buying stuff. And, to me, this is my first time going. And so this is a big impression on me. I'm looking forward to going because I've always, seen, footage of it and heard about it and whatnot. And I thought this would be a great opportunity to take my daughter this time. And to be honest with you, it was a horrible experience trying to buy tickets. I decided at the last minute not to try to do the Honda Center one. I'm glad I didn't, spend the extra money for it. I know that, Pro was talking on his show with the great panel talking about it's probably just going to be a waste of money. I mean, casino culture was talking about that and, how much all these people are spending. It's great for Disney. They're making all this money, but what are the people really getting out of this? And I feel like, this is starting to become one of those conventions where it's like, what's in it for the people going? They're spending all this money and they're expecting to hear stuff, but I got to be honest with you, I'm not so sure we're going to hear a lot of announcements coming out of the show. We're going to hear some announcements, but are they going to be great? The problem is they've set themselves up to shoot themselves in the foot in the past, where Disney said, "Oh, we're going to do this." oh yeah, okay, 2 years later, we're still doing this, but it's going to be this now. You know, kind of like Tiana's Bayou Adventure. It went from being this to oh, now we're down here. It's things like that, or it's things like, hey, we're planning on doing this, and then boom, you never hear about it again. I think we're going to hear about Avatar. I think we're going to hear about, Avatar Land. That is, I think we're going to hear about, Tomorrowland, but it's not going to be a big whoop-de-doo. What movies they're planning on coming out with, I'm not so sure we're going to be totally thrilled and excited about. They already announced, some things at Comic-Con, so they're going to rehash that. I'm just not so optimistic as I was originally going into this, and I feel bad because I feel like I've spent all this money for this convention, and I was totally excited about it. And the more and more I'm hearing about it and all the problems that people are having, I haven't even gotten into a queue to get into any of these shows or anything like that. And then I'm thinking, well, am I even going to be able to attend any of these things? I mean, if I'm not, then what did I just spend all this money for? And when are we going to be streaming, on Saturday? Regardless, I'm going to have a good time with my daughter, and I'm going to make the most of it and be positive. But after this week, I'll have some more to share, I'm sure, on next week's episode on, what it was like for me and my daughter and what we thought. But I'm getting a little discouraged. I'm trying not to get discouraged, from what I'm hearing, but I am a little discouraged. But hey, we're going to roll with the punches, see what happens, and, hope for the best. And then we'll talk about this more in detail next week when I'm here. But I don't know. What are you hearing, Ron and Vash?
I've heard, honestly, nothing. I haven't, because I know D23 is in California this year.
Sure.
It's been so upsetting the last decade, really, because you have announcements like Galaxy's Edge that when it first happened was like, it's going to be amazing, and then you see what happened with the Galactic Star Cruiser, and it's like all of these wonderful announcements. I go back to the old philosophy: under promise, over deliver. And for the last decade, Disney has done nothing but way over promise and way under deliver. And when I go back to the fact that in 2015 I had way more fun at Disney's Hollywood Studios with Star Wars weekends than I could ever hope to have at Galaxy's Edge, that's it for me. I'm like, what the heck,
So I kind of want to go over real fast what this is all about and kind of set it up a little bit. And Bob, I will then tell you my thoughts about what I've heard. But for the chat who might not know, Disney announces expansive programming lineup and show floor activations for D23, the Ultimate Fan Event. Ah, yes, activations. That's what we all go for, right? And there are many activations on this specific event right here. Over 55 panels and presentations across 5 stages are coming to the multi-day fan experience, showcasing the very best in creative storytelling and innovation across the Walt Disney Company. Oh, well, that sounds pretty good right here. However, it comes at a price. Programming reservation details. The reservation random selection process, or reservation RSP, for Anaheim Convention Center event stages, Talent Central, and most show floor experiences will open on Monday, July 15th, 12 p.m., and run through Friday, July 19th at 12 p.m. Reservations can be made at that website. Reservations are not guaranteed and will be randomly distributed based on preferences and availability. For guests who are not assigned reservations for their preferences, standby queues will be available for most Anaheim Convention Center panels and experiences. Good luck there. So here's the thing. People have bought into this system expecting that they'll be able to attend these panels or at least get guaranteed seats with this reservation system. The standby is unbelievably limited, folks. If you don't get in via one of these reservation systems, you're basically not getting in, and people are already reacting to this. Like Sean Ranks the Mouse, for example, who is, I believe, he is a travel agent. Yes, travel agent.
Yep.
And he had this to say about it. D23 reservations are quite literally a joke. Why in the world would anyone give guests the option of selecting multiple preferences every single day if you're only going to give them, checks notes, one reservation for one day of a full 3-day event? What a waste of time. Goes on to say right here, I have 11 D23 Expo tickets in my account for friends, and the best reservation I got for anybody was like 4th on their preferences list for some random Pixar ball giveaway or crappy panel, and only one max for the whole expo. I feel so bummed that I couldn't get anyone something that they wanted. Again, you're paying $200 into the system, or I mean, at minimum, I think it's like, what, if you buy the 3-day or something like that, it's like anywhere between 75 to 150. Is that right, Bob, at the very lowest end?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And it's incredibly expensive. You're especially if you're flying in, like let's say you're Ron, for example, and you want to attend this event from Florida. That's a huge expensive flyout all the way to Anaheim to actually make this happen. People come from all over the world to attend this event, and yet you have to enter into this reservation system just to get into some of these panels, and then maybe you don't actually get in. Now that gets worse, folks, because if you want to go ahead and buy something like merch at any of these great marketplaces that they have, like the D23 Marketplace, Disney Studios Store Hollywood, Mickey's of Glendale, which is the famous WDI marketplace that everybody wants to get into, Mickey's of Glendale Pin Store, TWC Store, all that. Well, then guess what, folks? You have to VQ for those experiences in the app at 4 a.m. each day in order to do that. 4 a.m. for this. And these are very, very full days. It's a lot of energy to actually attend one of these things from, sun up to sundown. This is a lot. I mean, Bob, what do you think about all that?
Well, it's ridiculous because, my daughter and I are only going on Saturday, and we're limited on what we can do. Originally, when I was buying the tickets, I was going to buy tickets for like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then those sold out really quick. So then I thought, well, instead of spending a bunch of money on 3 separate, individual passes, I'll get Friday, Saturday. And then when I looked into it, I'm like, you know what? This is such a frustrating thing. I'm just going to do Saturday. So I've only got one day that I'm going with my daughter, and there's only so much we can do. I don't want to spend, my time trying to get into a virtual queue only to have to wait 3 or 4 hours at a store to try to buy stuff. I mean, you're wasting your time. They need a better system to do that. And I think it's great they have all these exclusives and whatnot. But what happened to just going to a Comic-Con or, what are one of the other comms where you just go to and you're like, hey, I can get in, stand in line, do this, to me, it's become too much where if you have to do a virtual queue and you have to wait 3 or 4 hours in line to buy something in a store, it's not worth my time or energy. And yes, it might be something cool and exclusive, but I mean, I'd rather spend my time doing something else. And also, it's really weird when you look at these, what they're offering and showing you at some of these shows, or panels. Gotta be honest with you, some of these panels just sound boring. And I'm not really as interested in some of these as I thought I'd be. And so obviously my daughter, she's really young, so she still loves Descendants and she loves, zombies and all that stuff. So I'm sure I'm going to try to, see what I can do to get her into those panels and whatnot. But right now I'm looking at a day that it's going to be long, tiring, and frustrating if I can't get what I want to do for both of us. And I'm not going to try to worry about this merch as much. There are some things I know that she wants. I'm going to do my best to help her out to get what she wants. But if we don't get it, I'm just going to let her know, I'm sorry, but, we're going to make the best of the day.
Yeah, there are some great redeeming qualities about D23. If you can get into some of those panels, they're absolutely excellent. Obviously, you have the show floor, which has the Disney people from the Disney community from all over the place come together and actually show off their wares or have special events in that way and so forth. Like there's some good stuff there. Bob, I think you'll have a pretty decent time. This is not to sour your trip or anything. It's just in 2009. This event used to be manned by Disney cast members, and it even still had problems. There were fights on the show floor and so forth, fist fights, from people trying to get into certain panels and so forth. So, and then in 2011, they discontinued using their own cast members, and they now use convention staff in which to man these whole events, which didn't make things better, made things worse. They've attempted to implement systems in order to keep it fair for everybody, like this reservation system or this lottery system, but it's now so complicated. And obviously, if you don't actually get into the panel that you want, you feel cheated in some way. I know, like Mondo, for example, Five Flyers. The last time that he went to D23 Expo, I think he only got in for like some merch events, and that was it. Even though he had requested to be on every single panel that was provided there, because for a lot of people, that's why you go. And this is not just extending towards guests, but this is also hitting media as well when it comes to access to D23. So Jim Hill, who has been covering the Walt Disney Company for 40 years, since the 1980s, was actually denied media credentials this past go round. So does anyone out there have any direct link to anybody fairly high up within the D23 organization? The reason I ask is, well, on the heels of my application for a media credential to this year's D23 Expo being rejected, which of course is their right, now I'm having issues with, he continues, the backup ticket that I purchased to this 3-day long event, and I'd hate to think that I'm going to fly all the way out to Anaheim, which he lives in New Hampshire, only to then get turned away when I try to enter the convention center. Is anyone else out there having issues with their expo admission materials? There were some people who actually tried to chime in and help them out. If you're having an issue about transferring a ticket that Kitra is having, this is from Peter and Kitra of Ordinary Adventures responding. The deadline to transfer has passed and said it can only be done in person at ticket pickup, which, by the way, that's a huge risk if you're coming in from across the country. Jim Hill responded, "This is what makes me crazy about D23. I've made multiple calls to the official Disney fan club, sent a bunch of emails about this very same issue, and no one within the organization ever let me know about being possible to fix tickets on site at the convention center. Even Guy Selga is having issues. You know him famously from Twitter. I also got denied after covering the last 6 expos and getting pretty decent views on everything every year. Not mad or anything, just surprised. Also, a film threat, I believe, Chris Gore, who attended the last show, was saying that they were only approved for 1 day, not 3. Bob, have you heard anything about that?
Yeah, I've been hearing all about these media passes, and you know, it is frustrating, you know, especially, you know, when you are planning on covering it and thinking that you're going to be able to go again. And I get it, you know, they don't have to approve any of these media passes, right? But I think I got a way to solve this solution to this problem, and it's something that BlizzCon was actually doing. They did a virtual version, right? That was the most amazing way to do it. And I got to tell you, when you do a virtual one, you can get into every panel because it's pre-recorded. And not only is can you watch it live, but if you don't watch it live, it's pre-recorded, or sorry, it's already recorded. They save it, and then you can watch it for up to 2 weeks after the convention because there's so many different panels that you want to see and watch. So why don't they do a virtual, right? Not only that, but it allows people who can't travel across the country to actually experience the different panels and see everything. And Disney's still going to make money from it. They're going to get money from those people. And there's a store that you can still purchase stuff. And people, yes, there's going to be some show floor exclusives, but why not have a store open that everyone can buy stuff? Disney would make a lot of money that way. And it would really help out with all this. And with all the media stuff, even though, you know, these people wouldn't be able to get credentials, at least if they got the virtual queue, everyone has the opportunity to see it and to report on it just like they were if they were there. And it solves a big problem. So if they would just go to something like that, I think it would be much better because of the way they're doing it right now. To me, it's almost like Star Wars Celebration. I like Star Wars Celebration, but to me, ReedPop does not do a very good job of holding that convention. They're doing the same thing. You have to do the virtual queues for stuff. It's hard to get into the panels. You know, it's a lottery system that if you're even going to get into, you know, the opening ceremonies or closing ceremonies, what the heck am I buying a ticket for then? Am I buying a ticket just to walk around the floor and say bye? I mean, come on. So let's do something to solve this problem. And that is a virtual, you know, con. That's the perfect way to do it.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, Bob, because they are going to have some of these things broadcast virtually via Disney Plus. But now it becomes a question of why the heck even go there if you're going to take the biggest panels.
But here's the thing, BlizzCon. I went to BlizzCon for many, many years, every single year in a row. All right. And there were people who were dedicated who didn't care. They wanted to fly across the world, you know, to come to BlizzCon. So they still had thousands of people showing up to it and they still sold out tickets. But the difference was the people who couldn't make it still got to take part in all that stuff. And I think it would be just really cool if they would do a virtual one because, again, they're making more money. People are still going to show up. People are going to want to be there, right? Oh, I missed the Park Casual's comment. What was his comment?
Seems like it's just a cool kid's attitude that's keeping them from implementing those types of ideas. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, good point. So, oh, Greg C says, great point, Barry. Well, thank you. But, you know, it's not even my idea. It's just something that was done previously in the past. And now BlizzCon has gone the way of the dinosaurs, unfortunately. It looks like it's not coming back. And, you know, they unfortunately ran that one to the ground. But regardless, this is a great opportunity that we can actually experience it, and everyone can experience it, and they could have some exclusives, for those people who are just doing the virtual con too. And I just think it would be a great idea, and I hope someone from Disney, takes. I need to talk to someone from Disney. We need to talk about this, because I think it would be really good if they did something like that for going forward, in 2 years for the next one.
I don't necessarily disagree. I think there is something about having these events live. It's just, I think it's how they handled it, which is really the problem. But yes, more virtual events, I think, would be a boon, not only to this particular fan event, but also to D23 and Destination D and so forth like that in general. Ron, have you been to Destination D?
No, is that the one? That's the one that comes here every year, correct?
So
every other year. Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, I've never been to one of those events. I'm not really a con person. I may start having to go to cons, but I mean, they take a lot of money. And it's kind of in the name, con. So that's what they're there for. They're conning you out of a lot of money. Oh, I've been to Villain Con at Universal Studios. Villain Con. That's
Villain Con. Yeah, that's funny. That's funny.
They do have it there
convention
now,
at Universal. Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. But no, I have not been. I probably will go to it next year, though.
I went to D23 Expo once. Never going again. And I'll just go ahead and leave it at that. But on a brighter note, Anna Greco, $10. Thank you so much. I didn't see a message in the chat that you wanted to accompany with this, but thank you very much, and to everybody who has supported us throughout the stream and who have not only continue to tune in from week to week, but have tuned in for this show and so forth. Thank you so much for actually doing that. We're going to go ahead and close it on up here. But before we leave, we'll obviously want to highlight our creators who have joined us on this panel. So, Bob, where can the people find you?
You can find me on all my social media channels. That's YouTube, Instagram, X, Facebook, and TikTok at BarryPlace28. Obviously, I do my live streams on YouTube, and I will be streaming again tomorrow night at Disneyland. Also, my good friend Theme Park Casual, who's in the chat, by the way, he is getting ready to celebrate his 2-year anniversary, and he is close to hitting his 4,000 subscriber mark. So if you could go over to his channel and give him a follow and maybe subscribe, I'd really appreciate it, because he's a great friend and mentor to me, and I'd like to see him get close to his 4,000, or maybe even hit it on his anniversary. The other thing is, I will be at D23 with my daughter on Saturday, so please come and join me on Saturday. And then Monday, I will be on the Park Streamers channel with Theme Park Casual and Cordy in California doing our fun podcast on Monday. So I've got quite a few things coming up. Please come join me and join the fun. And thank you so much for your support. And as always, it's a pleasure being on the show. So thank you, Vash.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you being on here, Bob. You're just fantastic. Every single week you bring it. Very much appreciate it. And last but not least at all, Ron from Follow the Bradleys Fun. I know we have the YouTube channel. We have it right here, right there. Where else can we find you? What are you doing? What do you got going
on? So I do a show every morning, the Daily Dish at 9:30, where we talk about something that's been going on in the parks or the latest news. Sometimes it's related to just the pop culture going on out there that does work its way into the parks. For example, Deadpool and Wolverine obviously has worked its way into the parks. Very popular movie. So we just dish on all of the stuff that's going on. This morning it was about the sewage leak. Oh, that happened at the Magic Kingdom. I felt so, you gotta. It's so funny because you expect smells when you walk into the Magic Kingdom. You have Tony's Town Square Italian restaurant when you first walk in on the right, and then you have the confectionery right after that. You don't expect to get past Main Street and smell like, oh, what is that going on? Big old giant sewage leak that's happened 2 years in a row now, by the way.
Ooh, I did not know that. Well,
yeah, Saturday it was really, really bad.
I I will say this, though. It actually kind of goes along with the theming, right? Because Liberty Square,
Yes.
which where this happened, well, that's
it
what
did.
the brown stripe is, right?
Throughout
throughout the land.
Life. But yeah, so we talked about that. So that's every morning at 9:30, which streams right into Culture Casino, and sometimes that streams into Pro into this, and it just kind of flows with the That Park Place Network. And then tonight at 7:30 on my channel, I will have special guest Matt Ankney, Ozark Matt, and we call it Two from the Lou because we are two St. Louis boys. I'm in Florida, he's still in St. Louis. Tonight we're talking about the German roots that St. Louis has and all the German culture, and also that the band Fish came to play. We're going to talk about his experience going to Fish. So that's just a fun show. It's a little different than what we normally do on the channel. And I also have a Universal Studios vlog with the Epic Universe Preview Center and an amazing nighttime show that I was surprised. I didn't even know it was there. Fireworks and waterworks and drones, and it was one of the coolest nighttime spectacular shows that I had ever seen. And so we covered that vlog. I was hoping to have it done so that we could stream this right into it, but I'm not quite finished with the edit on that. So look for that on the channel in the next day or two. Yeah, we keep on keeping on and posting, and a lot of other stuff coming out soon. So
sounds like a lot of good stuff.
Yeah,
great stuff.
It's a lot of fun. So follow the Bradley's fun.
Damn, follow the Bradley's fun indeed. If you haven't subscribed yet to this channel right here, why don't you go ahead and hit the subscribe button while you're waiting for Mr. H. He's coming up right after this show, so don't go ahead and touch that dial. Like this video if you did like this video. On T3PO, we have new content every single day. Obviously, we have the genre guys. We're going to be getting the Lost Guys as well here very shortly. Just have to do some programming for that specific show. Also, too, we have Hollywood Backlit with Lou and You every single Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern. And obviously the show you're watching right now at 2:30 p.m. Eastern. Yeah, I think I got all that correct. So thank you so much for watching, guys. Do appreciate your amazing viewership, your amazing support of this channel. Tell everybody who is in the chat, thank you for our contributors helping us out every single one of these shows. You really do make this all possible. Everybody, whether you're on the panel, whether you're in the chat, you're liking, subscribing, all those things. Thank you so much. And we will, you guys have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Which one is it? It is this one. Here we go.